Welcome to another video from Pagan Life. We're glad to see you. I'm Lady Lilith, and this is my friend Reverend Sonny D.
How you doing?
What we wanted to talk with you about today is death and dying. I don't know how many times people ask me what happens to a pagan after they die. That seems to be something that's really interesting subject to most of you out there. So let's ask Reverend Sonny D, what does happen after pagans die?
Most pagans don't fear death because we see it as a natural cycle of life. We believe that consciousness survives death. We have a life beyond this state of being, this physical state of being. We generally, now I'm sharing with you my ideas and my beliefs, and not all pagans believe the same. A lot of us see it as concrete. Some of us see it as a concrete idea, an afterlife, what have you. And some of us see it as just a concept.
Yes, what I wanted to say about that is that we generally do believe in reincarnation, although some pagan paths do not. We do. And one of the things that we think is that nature does not waste anything. Everything is reused, and that is you, your experiences, your knowledge, your wisdom, and it's cumulative. And you learn a little bit more each time around. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. There are a lot of concepts about death. I mean, Christians have their own version of heaven and hell. Pagans generally don't see heaven and hell. In fact, we believe in a law called the law of congruity. That means that everything is a balance. So if we do our very best to learn what we can in this lifetime and move on into the next transition.
Well, you know, Reverend Sonny, a lot of people ask me, do pagans get punished? Like, do we go to hell after we die, or do we go into a worse life next time around, or do we come back as somebody that's going to suffer? What about fairness? If you're not a good person in this life, what happens then when you die?
Well, generally, this is a really touchy subject because not all pagans, not all people agree. But for me, I will give you my assessment, my evaluation of it, and that is whatever has happened in this life, there's an equal balance to it. So when I move on to the next life, there's going to continually be a balance to it. Robert Ingersoll wrote in Nature, and that's what we're about, nature and cycle of things. He wrote in Nature, there's no such thing as a reward or a punishment. Only consequences. Now, when we look up that word, consequences, all that really means is it's a result of a circumstance, a situation, or a choice. And so, ultimately, now looking at those three words, circumstances, situations, and choice, it is up to us to determine what our afterlife is going to be based upon what we live now. This is my personal opinion now. This is not all pagan view. There are many pagans who agree on this view, but not all do. My view of it is very simple. I will do my best to maximize my experience in this life without violating the law of love. I do that as best as my ability. But because of my choices in my life, I've made some mistakes. We all will. But you know what? If you look at the truth of mistakes, there is no such thing. Because as a result of whatever you perceive it as, a mistake or a situation, circumstance, or a choice, you come down to a really clear thing. I had an experience.
Right.
And I learned from that.
Right.
And we take that into our next transitions.
Well, another thing people like to ask me about is, what about heaven and hell? They've heard the terms, things like Summerland, Valhalla, Happy Hunting Grounds, Mount Olympus. Are we going to go to something like that when we die?
Again, I'm going to answer that for me. first, let me clarify. Valhalla, Summerland, the Valley of Vale, all of these places, some pagans see these as concrete places they're actually going to go. Others see them as concepts to transition. But ultimately, all of them, not all of them, but many of them, see them as transition period, that period between this life and the next life that we choose, the next incarnation that we choose. And so to make it simple for you, some pagans see Valhalla as a literal place. Some of us see Summerland as a literal place. But many do also see them as only concepts. Because ultimately, from my point of view, again, this is my opinion, and many pagans agree with me, but not all. I believe that ultimately I'm going to live these lives, make the mistakes I make, and learn from them, and continue to do so until it's time for me to rejoin with that creative power of the universe, that one thing that Dion Fortune called the initiator.
Well, I like to think of it as rest and relaxation. And I'll tell you what, folks, after this incarnation, I'm kind of looking forward to a little of it. So thank you for joining us with Pagan Life. I hope that answered a few of your questions. And if not, you can feel free to post a video response and ask for clarification. Or if you send us a private message, we might read it. I ain't promising nothing.
But we will do our best. We'd like to hear your comments, and we would like to see your video responses. Give us a holler.
Thank you.
Thank you.